everybody. Welcome to Influencive. My name is Brian D. Evans, and today I have an extra special guest for you. His name is Tom Bilyeu. He's the co-founder of Quest Nutrition, which ranked number 2 on the Inc. 500 list of fastest growing companies in America. He is the host of Inside Quest, and he has founded a new company called Impact Theory. And here is my interview with Tom.
Hey Tom, how's it going? Thanks for being here.
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to do it.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well, man. How about yourself? You excited about the new year and everything?
I am, yeah. Everything's full speed ahead, so it's going to be a great year for everybody.
Nice, very cool.
So I noticed something really interesting when I was doing some research about you. We were both on the Inc. 500 list, and
Yes.
you were number 2. I was number 172. And what really stood out to me about that is for my company to get to number 172, I had to grow it 2,388% in 3 years. So you must have had to grow yours like a gazillion percent. And that
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. We grew by 57,000%.
that's insane. And that was Quest Nutrition, right?
Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
thank you. And
Yeah,
congratulations to you, man. That's really hard to hit. So I'm always impressed when I see people on that list. So well done. I know they vet the hell out of it.
yeah,
So it's not smoke and mirrors. So well played.
yeah, totally. So where I'd love to start off is with a quote from an article that I think you wrote, and it's about the Matrix. So I think you'll like this.
Nice.
The quote is, "To me, the brain is the Matrix, and just like once you wake up in the Matrix, you can bend it to your will. The brain will bend to your will and allow you to do things you never thought possible. But first, you have to believe." So my question to you is, are you the one? No,
Um,
no, I'm just kidding.
yeah, sadly, I am not the one. But, yeah.
But no, but the real question is, and speaking of the brain, how would you say you begin to the rewiring process of the brain to do things that you didn't think were possible?
The first step for me really was understanding the brain, like actually getting to know the anatomy of it. Elon Musk has that cool quote which really resonated with me, which is get down to the physics of the issue. And when you're dealing with mindset or you're dealing with entrepreneurial issues, there's really two factors. On the entrepreneurial side, you've got the business itself. You have to be looking at the metrics. You have to have an understanding of the basic math of the situation and how you need to function from a cash flow perspective, sales, all of that. But the second part that I don't think people really understand, it also has a physics side, we'll call it, is the mind. And for me to look at that, we all experience the world through our brains. It's this, whatever 3-pound mush of jelly that never sees the light of day. And that was a huge thing for me to understand that the brain never actually touches light unless something really bad has happened. And yet it reconstructs this world around us and allows us to move through time and space without bumping into things, as I like to say. And once I realized that the brain it was making it up. It's its best guess based on electrical and chemical signals. Then I knew that my brain was fabricating this whole world. And if it was doing that to some extent, it was guessing or lying or whatever the case may be. And if I could understand exactly what it was doing, then how much of that I could take control of and make it a conscious thing. And so as I began to learn about it, one of the fascinating things I came across is the deep limbic system. The deep limbic system colors your perception of things. And once I realized there's literally a section of the brain that's set aside to determine whether something is negative or positive or fearful or joyful, that's when I realized, okay, there's a lot of decisions being made about the world that are not objective. They're entirely subjective. And learning to take control of that was the beginning of the journey for me.
That's awesome. And I think a part of the brain is really designed to keep us alive, right? So sometimes it's not really necessarily designed for everybody for entrepreneurial success. So sometimes when we get these grand ideas, it freaks out and says, stop, stop, stop.
No question. And that is a really powerful thing that people are finally beginning to talk about, which is the brain developed from an evolutionary perspective to protect us from a lion, to identify patterns in the brush that could be, a tiger about to jump out. And you've got the amygdala and the fear responses, fight or flight, like all of those mechanisms designed that really make a lot of sense when you're living on the savannah, but maybe don't make as much sense in a modern context. And learning how not to fall prey to them or learning how to leverage them. Fear, for instance, to me is a signal. And I use it in maybe the opposite way that it was intended to, which is in a modern context, a lot of the things that scare you are because they're big, because there's a lot of potential for failure. There's potential for, being ostracized by the group. But if it's a calculated risk, it can be really important to move towards that fear, to do those things if you want to play in a big stage. And I think that that's really something that's important. Not everybody does. And I do not pass a value judgment on that. I don't think most people should. I think people should really understand who they are, what they want out of life, and then set a plan, right? What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? But if there's something that stands between you and your goals that triggers that fear response, then I believe you should move immediately towards that and do that thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess while we're on the brain and mindset, you talk a lot about fixed and growth mindsets. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, Carol Dweck wrote an amazing book. She is a Stanford professor, and she was really asking an incredibly profound question, which is why do some kids hit a challenge and they seem inspired by it, and other kids hit it and they turn and run in the opposite direction? They make up excuses. They'll even lie about it. And when presented with something that's difficult or something that's easy, they'll always opt for the easy thing. And so she wanted to figure out, like, what mechanism is at work. And through her research, she realized there's two different tactics that people use. And this is me adding a layer on top of that. I believe what they're doing is they're using that to build self-esteem. Those are my words, not necessarily hers, though I think that they really comport with what she's saying. But if somebody has a fixed mindset, what they're doing is they believe that their talents and intelligence are fixed traits that you're given at birth. There's not a lot that you can do to manipulate them. They're not malleable. They just are what they are, right? Michael Jordan was born good at basketball. He had the natural athleticism, and sure, he leveraged that in a specific direction that we call basketball, but ultimately he was a guy that was born with just incredible athleticism. And then a growth mindset is somebody who goes, no, none of that's true. My talent and intelligence are totally malleable traits that I can grow over time through deliberate practice, and I can get good at anything regardless of what my sort of natural state is. And it doesn't mean that people don't have natural gifts in a given direction. But at the end of the day, that is maybe merely an answer to the question of how easy will it be for that person, but it certainly doesn't answer the question of what is your ultimate potential. So when you believe in a growth mindset, you realize that you can do anything you set your mind to. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It just means that it is possible. And, once you believe that, the entire world opens up to you.
Did you have a point in your life or your career where you realized you were in a fixed mindset? And if so, how did you go from there to the growth mindset, if that was the case for you?
Yeah, very sadly, I did not have Carol's book when I was going through all of this. So I knew that there was something wrong. And for me, the thing that helped was The Matrix. And so I didn't have the lexicon of fixed and growth mindset. But what I did have was that movie that, you have this protagonist who's like, I can do more, I can be more, but I feel trapped. What's trapping me? It's the Matrix. What is the Matrix? And you go on to realize the Matrix is this construct. And once you realize that it's a construct, that it has rules, and those rules can be bent and manipulated, then you realize, oh, wow, like there are things that I can do. I can turn inside myself. I can look at, you said it early, or that to me, the brain is the Matrix. And once you realize that those are a web of beliefs about the way the world works, and if you start changing those beliefs strategically, you will literally be capable of more. So I was having this crisis moment where I had told myself that my goal was to get rich. I would not say that's my goal anymore, but that was my goal at the time. I just wanted to get rich. And so I was showing up every day, working my ass off as an entrepreneur, trying to get better, trying to learn and grow. But my actions weren't always in accordance with my stated desire to get rich. And one day I found myself arguing with my business partners, who were very smart guys. And I was just wrong so often that it was beginning to damage my self-esteem. And so I found myself trying to get really good at arguing to convince them I was right, regardless of whether or not I actually thought that, my idea would get us to where we wanted to go from a business perspective. And I thought, okay, this is really dumb. And I ended up winning an argument with them where they agreed that my idea was the right idea to advance the business, and I knew it wasn't. And I knew that their idea was better. And so I sat myself down and I said, look, either you want to get rich or you want to win arguments. Which is it? And I realized in that moment that what I was doing was being ego protective. And everybody needs to have self-esteem. Like and when people say, oh, ego's bad and all that, that's bullshit. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of the physics of being a human being. People have to feel good about themselves. You have to. And you've got to find something that makes you feel good about who you are. But what you choose to build your self-esteem around really, really matters. And so I realized in that moment, okay, I'm going to stop building my self-esteem around being right, which is what I had been doing, which is why I wanted to win the arguments, because then I could prove to them that I was right. Even if I didn't believe it, at least it was being echoed back to me that these smart guys thought that I was right. So instead of building my self-esteem around being right, I said, I've got to flip this and start building my self-esteem around something that is always productive towards my goals. And what would that be? Well, if I built my self-esteem around being willing to admit that I was wrong and identifying the right answer faster than anyone else, and then putting all of my energy into accepting that that is the answer and we should move forward with it, all the while giving that person credit. And once I made that switch, then it was like the more I worked to feed my ego and feel good about who I was, the more I was actually moving towards my goals and making other people feel better, because I was telling them, hey, I really think your idea is right. It's amazing. And I was wrong. And I know 30 seconds ago, I was arguing really hard for my position. But once I realized I was wrong and you were right, I could switch on a dime. And then everything just lined up. My desire to feel good was in line with what I was actually trying to accomplish in life. And it's what Nassim Taleb calls anti-fragile. And so the more you try to attack me, and this is his definition of anti-fragile. Anti-fragile isn't something that is resistant to damage. It isn't resilient, because something that's resilient is still ultimately defined by its breaking point. Something that's anti-fragile gets stronger the more you attack it. So the more you tried to tell me that I was dumb, my ideas were wrong, the more I felt good about myself for being able to recognize, actually, you're right, I am wrong, that is the right answer. And then I had credibility when I said, no, my answer is right, because you'd seen me 100 times before go, yep, you're right, I'm wrong, totally, and now let's go this way.
Yeah, that's amazing. I watched a power-up video you did, and I think it was titled "Everything Is Your Fault." And
Yes.
I thought that was really powerful. And you kind of touched on some of the things there. But what would you tell somebody that they're not taking responsibility for themselves, they're blaming it on everybody else and everything else? Where's sort of the first place to start there? You kind of touched on it a little bit already, but
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the first place to start is empathy. I get it. I get why people are there. And feeling like you're wrong if you pride yourself on being right is actually really destructive. And people have to be so careful, because you have to be able to, and look, I use the word fault because I want to get people's attention.
totally.
But when I say that, I'm talking to entrepreneurs. I'm talking to people that they want to develop their mind, right? And even when I say entrepreneur, an entrepreneur to me is somebody that destroys the obstacles that stand between them and their goal. So they could want to be a great parent, and I will consider them entrepreneurial minded. So if somebody is in that mindset and they want to grow and get better, what I tell them is very simple. You need to do and believe that which moves you towards your goals. Very simple. So if somehow coming up with excuses actually helps you, then do it. But my gut instinct is, since I've never seen that work, that it's a losing strategy, and that you should be picking something that actually helps you hit some metric, right? And so what's that metric going to be? Is it going to be, if you're trying to be a better parent, decide what your metrics are, your kids' happiness, school grades, whatever that core of things is that you care about. And then if you're trying to build a business, it's very simple. Like, are you positively impacting the world, and are you generating enough revenue and free cash flow in order to keep growing and expanding, to keep delivering something of value to the world? And it's that simple.
Speaking of delivering value to the world, so you've had the traditional success. What drives you at this stage?
Yeah, this is interesting, and if any of us could answer this at a global scale, we would really figure it out. So the book Drive by, oh God, is it
I know what you're talking about.
Daniel Pink? I'm almost certain it's Daniel Pink.
So.
Forgive me if I'm blanking on that, but the book Drive, anyway, phenomenal book, and goes into the things that really motivate people. I think there's 5 things that motivate people, and then I'll get specific about what motivates me in a second. But the 5 things are money. People are motivated by money, certainly to a certain extent. Yep. They're motivated by a desire for autonomy. Nobody wants to be a puppet on a string. They're motivated by a sense of purpose. They want to know why they're doing what they're doing. They're motivated by a desire for mastery, which is huge. Like, people want to get good at things. I think that's innate to the human species. And then people want significance. They want to know that their contributions matter. And I think I fall exactly into that. I'm very interested in building a big business. I understand the power of money. I don't want to swim in my money like Scrooge McDuck, but it's the great facilitator. You know, it really does things. And I think when people, if people deny that, like, you're just opening the door for somebody who understands that. They're going to go, they're going to accumulate the resources, and they're going to do something with it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what drives me now is, and this is me personally, and I obviously don't expect this to be true for everybody, but I'm driven by beauty and anger in equal measure. So I want to create something amazing for the world. I truly want to bring in a new era where we're able to leverage what's happening right now in society, which is the entrepreneurial revolution, where you have a moment in time where it's actually cool to be an entrepreneur. And because I don't believe entrepreneurs are born, I believe that they're made. That to me is open for everybody. It's completely democratized, and anybody that wants to become an entrepreneur has the opportunity to do that. Now, most people will not. I am very aware of that, and I'm hyper aware of how few people are willing to put in the work. But nonetheless, that to me is anybody can develop that mindset. The one thing nobody can ever take away from you is your ability to develop your own mindset. I mean, look at what Nelson Mandela did in prison. I mean, it's just unbelievable. There's way too many examples of people doing incredible things under the harshest of conditions. Read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I mean, it's just on and on and on of people that do incredible things with their mind. So to me, that's open to everybody. I want to make that concrete. So the new company that we launched, Impact Theory, is that exactly. So we understand that we're living in this unique moment where we have social media, everybody's hyper connected, ideas are flowing freely, people are able to develop their mind, and now you're going to have an entire generation of people rising up that want this, they want to do something, they want to affect change, but you're going to keep seeing things like the Arab Spring. It doesn't quite go the way that people wanted. You're going to see Occupy Wall Street, but it doesn't go anywhere. Even like harkening back to the hippie movement, you have people that they want grand social change. Like, they can feel it in their fucking bones. They want to make this happen, and they're real. They have good intentions, but they don't know how to execute. And that's what we want Impact Theory to be, is now we have this moment in time where you can give a group of people an ethos, something to live by, but you can also give them the steps to execute against it. And so it's this incredibly exciting time where I get to speak to people like you who share that kind of mission. Enough of us band together and hold ourselves to a no bullshit contract of we're only going to do that which actually works, and then we can do something. So Impact Theory has two sides. Side one is the entrepreneurial side, building businesses, incubating those, helping them get funding, all of that stuff. And then the flip side of the coin is leveraging traditional media to tell stories that empower people. And I don't know if it's on camera or not, but for anybody out there who knows what this is, that is the Rebel Alliance symbol from Star Wars. Now, that to me, and the reason that I talk about the Matrix, and the reason I think in movie terms, is if you know Joseph Campbell. Yeah. And if you don't know Joseph Campbell, for anybody watching, go pick up the book, The Power of Myth. He talks about in that book just these incredibly, incredibly powerful notions about how a lot of the problems that we suffer from in society come down to the fact that we no longer have modern relevant myths that speak to people. But I actually think that's not true. I think we have incredibly powerful myths. We don't have enough rituals, and we'll get to that later. Yeah. But we have incredibly powerful myths, but we don't tell people how to use them in their life. And so that's going to be something that we do with Impact Theory, is show people how there is incredible art being created right now, which are modern myths that if you look at them as instruction manuals for how to live, as crazy as that may sound, that can really, really be impactful in your life. They've certainly changed my life. They're guiding principles in my life. And so we want to incubate content creators that are out there that are creating this modern mythology, this ethos for how to live, to how to be a better entrepreneur, to how to be socially responsible, and bring those two worlds together, because to me they are sides of the same coin.
Dude, I love Joseph Campbell and mythology, and this sounds amazing. And you touched on rituals, and I wanted to talk about that. I'm curious, what are some of your rituals? What do you use in your daily life in terms of the rituals?
Yeah, I have a morning routine, which I'll go through here, but if anybody wants a written out version, you can go to impacttheory.com. It goes like this. I'm super freaky about doing this, and I have different rituals Monday through Friday than Saturday through Sunday, so I'm going to give you Monday through Friday. So it goes like this. I go to bed. A morning ritual starts the night before. So I go to bed really early. I'm usually in bed no later than 9 p.m., sometimes a little bit earlier. And the reason that I do that is I don't believe in waking up to an alarm. The misery of waking up to an alarm is so painful, and I don't think you're existing in an optimal state when you're depriving your brain of the amount of sleep that it needs. So even though I'm a total grinder and I'm putting in 16, 18-hour days, I'm not waking up to an alarm. So I go to bed at 9. I wake up whenever I wake up. Now, if there's a lot on my mind, if I'm really excited, I may wake up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever. If I get less than 5 hours sleep, I'll try to fall back asleep for, let's call it 30 minutes. If I get 5 hours or more, I give myself 10 minutes to get out of bed. And then, boom, I'm out of bed. I head straight to the gym. I'm fortunate enough to have a gym in my house. I go downstairs. From the moment I wake up to the moment I'm doing my first set is usually less than 15 minutes. So I'm in the gym. I'm working out right away. I work out for about an hour. Now, the reason I work out is more to do with my mind and my body. So for anybody out there who doesn't care about physique, that's not interesting to them, I implore you, you still need to work out because it's going to do things to your mind. So there is just a mind-body connection that can't be denied. There's enough science on that and enough anecdotal evidence to choke a rhinoceros. So definitely work out. So I hit the gym, about an hour, come out. First thing I do, immediately meditate. I meditate immediately after working out because for me, the juxtaposition is incredibly powerful of going from maximum physical effort to trying to calm myself. And because my heart rate is elevated, I can really see like how quickly I'm able to bring it down. And I do a version of just breathing meditation, which I learned from a Navy SEAL named Mark Divine. And I avoided meditation for years because it felt really weak to me. It just felt, I don't know, it felt, it made me feel like a wussy when I thought about it. That's the honest answer. Now that's stupid, and I'm hyper aware of that now. But at the time, it really derailed me. But meeting Mark Divine and seeing this Navy SEAL tell me, no, look, dude, you need to meditate. You need to do it a lot. He was like, it'll be incredibly powerful. So I started doing it. He does a box breathing technique, which means your inhale is the same duration as the hold at the top of the inhale. It's the same duration as the exhale. It's the same duration as the hold at the end of the exhale. I've modified that because that didn't feel right to me. And meditation, to me, it's tailored, man. It's individual to everybody. And you should be looking for the result. It should make you feel totally calm, at ease. And what I refer to as the background radiation of your mind, the anxieties, the worries, all of that should go to zero. So whatever it takes to get that to zero, that's what you should do. So I tend to do a long inhale, a short exhale, and a long hold at the end of the exhale. And that's where I find the most pleasure. And then on the inhale, I don't hold that very long either. So it's not 4 equal sides, but it works for me incredibly well. Now, meditating puts you in what's called an alpha wave state, which is considered to be the most creative brain state. Somebody who understands the neuroscience of it better would have to explain why it's that case. But we just, for Impact Theory, interviewed a guy named V.S. Ramachandran. He's one of the most famous neuroscientists. I don't know if you know him, but we got a chance to talk about the alpha wave state and this notion that I call thinkitating, which is leveraging the alpha wave afterglow of meditation, where you're in this creative state, you feel totally relaxed but entirely alert. I break my meditation pose, which is cross-legged in the most comfortable chair in the world. And then normally what I do, it's a reclining chair. I just recline back, and the change in posture lets me know that I'm, in a different state now. But I'm still able to take advantage of the really creative state, which in a creative state, what's really happening is you're making these cross connections throughout your brain. So you're making really unique and novel connections. And to me, that is what it's all about. I'm not worried about thinking new thoughts. I'm interested in making new connections that other people haven't made before, that have to do with what I've been learning, that have to do with my history and background and all of that stuff, which would be entirely unique to me. But using that quiet time in that creative state to tackle whatever is the biggest challenge that I'm facing. So I usually decide that before I begin meditating. Oftentimes the night before, I'll know this is what I'm going to think about when I thincitate. And the reason that I decide that early is coming out of the meditation, I don't want to lose that buzz, if you will. And, trying to, what should I be thinking about right now? So I can transition immediately into thincitating. I do that. Depends on how fertile it is. But I might do that anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, and I keep a computer next to me while I thincitate so I can take notes as they come. And then when it feels like it's sort of diminishing returns, or I've got, something I need to do, then I'll stop doing that. And I keep a list of the most important things that I need to be doing. And so I do not check email In fact, I don't usually check email till I've been working for about 6 hours, ballpark.
Yeah.
But the reason that I don't check email is, what are the odds that my list of the most important things to do is less important than the random stuff that's coming to my email box?
Exactly.
So I use intellectual punishment if I check email, because email's amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to think. It just comes in. If you just do it, like, your day is taken care of.
Yep.
The problem with that is you're not going to get anything done because you're letting other people control your agenda. So I go through my list of most important things. Once everything is either finished or moved forward, then I move on. Now, because my day starts so early, I usually get about 6 to 8 hours worth of work before my first employee shows up. And then I begin the normal day with meetings and all of that stuff. But I've taken, 6 to 8 hours, which is for most people a full day, to do all of my stuff. All the agenda items that I have, including the meditation and all of that. But, really making sure that I get the things that are important moving.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love meditating, and I think that mind-body connection is so important. You sort of have to have those two things. And I'm curious, what point in your life were you always, really a health conscious person, or was there a certain point where you had a realization? Is that why you started Quest Nutrition?
Yeah, I was very much not always a health conscious person. In fact, from the time I was 13 till 18, I probably ate turkey nuggets like 5 nights a week. Deep fried, by the way. We actually had a deep fryer in my house.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, very delicious, by the way. But I'm sure horrific that I spent all those years in that stuff. And it really was, I wanted to escape the fate of my family. My family has been morbidly obese my entire life, like a very good percentage of my family. And so I just didn't want that for myself. And so I had to learn about nutrition. I went through a lot of phases. So there was a phase where I was like dweeby skinny. And then there was a phase where I was 60 pounds heavier than I am now, and really having to learn about nutrition to scale it back and get in shape, and that impetus to want to learn about it, coupled with my business partner, is just amazing at nutrition. And he was the driver from these are the products that we should make. And then I was the driver from the perspective of really wanting to help people. And I was thinking about my mom and my sister every day and wanting to save them, which is exactly how I thought about it. And since we launched the company, my sister's lost over 120 pounds. It's been just absolutely astonishing. So those two things together, having struggled with it myself, and then really wanting to do something beautiful for people, that was the driver there. And
you went from like making bars in your kitchen to having thousands of employees now at Quest?
Yeah, it's really been absolutely insane. So we started making the product in a commercial kitchen that we rented the hour. So we were running we had a technology company at the time. We were running that by day, and then at night we were making the bars by hand.
Wow.
With rolled pins. It was pretty crazy, and is just a great reminder to entrepreneurs out there. You don't need money. You can do your day job. You just have to be willing to hustle. And was it exhausting? Of course it was. Was it worth it? Absolutely. And so many amazing things in my life have come from just a willingness to outwork other people, and that is the one thing that everybody controls, man.
Totally.
And if people would just be stoked on themselves enough and believe in themselves enough to put in the work and know that. And I think this is one of the things that stops people. You'll get a result. Like you, the person who doubts yourself, is convinced you can't do anything. I promise you can. You can do amazing, transformational shit. Yeah. You just have to be willing to put in the work. So that's what we were doing, grinding it out at night. And then, it's at the height of our employees, and admittedly, having a lot of employees should not be the goal. And so we tried to scale back as much as possible. But we at one point had, if you count ambassadors, it was like over – It might have been almost 3,000.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
That's including part-time. And then the base of our full-time at its height, I think, was 1,400.
Wow. So what's the most important thing to you right now in your life?
You really have to break that up by segments in your life, I think, to really give an honest answer. So there are two things that I really think about as sort of my grand overarching concerns. And that's my family, which is really headed up by my relationship with my wife. And I think about that a lot, and I put a lot of energy into that.
Yeah.
And that is my, people talk about buying an island somewhere. Like, she's my emotional island, right?
Yeah.
She is that thing in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with the stunning beaches. And we've just invested so much into our relationship to make sure that it's good and strong. And that is the only thing in my life that trumps my ambition, which is the other thing. And, I was saying earlier, I'm motivated by beauty and anger in equal measure. And I never really talked about the anger. That to me is full of self-doubt, being full of insecurities. Like, I have that just as much as anybody else, and I want to prove something to myself. I want to prove that I can do it. I want to prove that I can push myself beyond what other people think is possible. I want people to doubt me. I want them to think I'm going to fail. And I really think people under-leverage that, and it's somehow become cool in our society to be like, above that. I'm not above that. Like, I want to prove it. I want to prove it to myself. I want a chip on my shoulder. I want to be fucking hungry. If you look at me on paper, I think people expected my wife and I to buy an island and retire to it. We were very successful with Quest, and that just wasn't what we wanted to do. Like, we want to build something beautiful for people and prove something to ourselves and to other people that we're capable of doing something grand, massive, on a bigger scale than other people dare to even think. And one thing that I think that young upstart entrepreneurs under leverage is they don't know how to find that balance to the extremes of, you should want good things for people, and you should want to do something beautiful, and you should be thinking about what's good for the world. And at the same time, like, don't be afraid to admit that you're worried that you're not good enough. Don't be afraid to admit that you're afraid you're going to fail. And that also drives you. Yeah. And, when you can find that push-pull of, I'm being pulled to do things because I want to create something wonderful and that I can be proud of, and I'm being pushed by that, what we call the sickness, or in Batman mythology is the bat. That thing that drives you. For Bruce Wayne to have seen his parents killed and say, I'm never going to let that happen again. And that amount of rage and anger actually propels him to do something incredible. And that's exactly how I feel.
That's amazing. Yeah. And with impact theory, it sounds incredible. I'm going to be a customer. I'm going to be checking it out. I hope others do as well. It's impacttheory.com, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. This was an incredible burst of energy and enlightenment, so I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. I really enjoyed it and really respect what you're up to. As I always do, I dive into people before I take the interviews, so very cool what you're up to, man.
Super Thanks. Impressed. I really appreciate it.
Definitely.
How else can people, so we've got impacttheory.com, if they want to follow you personally, where should we send them?
At Tom Bilyeu. So I'm hyper social. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. All of them at Tom Bilyeu. My last name is spelled Bilyeu. I wish it were easier, but there you have it.
That's how it is. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Appreciate it.